Seeing your child in distress is heartbreaking for any parent. And as a mom of an autistic child, watching a meltdown is extra heartbreaking because my son, when he has a meltdown, has lost control, and there's so little that I feel like I can do to support him. Nonetheless, in this video, I am going to share the things that I found that do help the most. This video is more about responding to meltdowns versus preventing them. I think I'll do a separate video about preventing them because there is a lot that I'm learning that I can do to help at least reduce the number of meltdowns that my son is having. And while I'm making this video, I am doing just some of the weekly prep that I need to do as a mom. I am making some oat bar squares because, let's face it, snacks are expensive and I need to try to make some healthy gluten-free snacks for my son and my other kids too, I suppose. If you're new here, I'm Katie, mom of 4, including an autistic 4-year-old, and I am sharing all about our journey and things we're learning along the way, so be sure to subscribe so that you can follow along. I'm going to be sharing the 5 things I've learned about responding to meltdowns, as well as a bonus tip at the end. Just slight warning, I am not a therapist or a medical professional, and so these are things that have been tips from our therapists and professionals, but it might not work perfectly for your child, so be sure that you consult someone who really knows and understands autistic children. Oh, I'll also link the recipe for this in the description in case anyone's interested. And then just quickly, this could be a whole video in itself, but a meltdown versus a tantrum, they're 2 different things. So a meltdown is where the brain is overloaded, either it's sensory overload or not enough sensory input, but it's just everything is too much and the child really has no control over it. In a tantrum situation, it's usually because something's been taken away or is not available that the child wants, and they are screaming or throwing themselves on the ground or something along those lines. In that case, you'll notice that the child is actually looking back at you to see if you're responding. So there's like some interaction and like hope for attention that's happening typically, at least from how it's been described to me, versus a meltdown, keeping in mind that's really important to know. They do not have control over a meltdown. Some of these ideas could potentially even work for a tantrum, but a meltdown is a different situation. I think the main thing to know is the child does not have control over it. So you can't really like teach out of meltdowns. You can just respond to them and then work on preventing them in the future. Okay, so the first thing to think about is sensory input. So my child is a sensory seeker. So if he doesn't have enough sensory input, he doesn't respond well to that. He needs a good amount of sensory input to feel secure. And so, especially if he's starting to get upset about something, if he's not getting the sensory input he needs, it could lead to a meltdown. But if you have a child who's more sensory avoidant, then you don't want to respond the way I would respond, because I help give my son deep squeezes and deep pressure squeezes and do some of our sensory input toys, but there's obviously children for which that's not going to be very helpful. Knowing which your child is, for the most part, is huge. Though I have heard from some autistic adults that some people are both. And so really understanding the difference between the sensory needs and in what situation your child might want more input or less input can help a lot. Okay. Number 2 is finding a safe place to allow it to happen. In a true meltdown situation, once it starts happening, you can't just stop it. And so you need to make sure your child is safe and that you are safe and everyone around is safe. So we have a safety bed. So that's in a situation where we really need it. He actually really likes it. He calms down in there. We put on music, we have sensory lights, and it helps him feel a lot better. We also have like this big Pikachu pillow that's kind of a calm down pillow. And so just making sure ahead of time, ahead of any meltdowns, you do have a location where you can physically take the child where the child is safe. And then assess your child's needs. Does your child just need to kind of be left alone, given some space? Do they really need comfort and to be really close to you? I wouldn't recommend, especially for very young children, you go very far. But if your child needs some space, it's good to give some space. And so you kind of have to look at the situation and figure out what your child needs the most at that particular time. So direct comfort, just being nearby, guide from you, what does your child need? And it might be a little bit of trial and error, especially when you're new to it or during a time where meltdowns are increasing. And then number 4 is similar. So it's supporting your child as needed and also backing off when needed. I do have a free visual starter pack, and one of them is the How Am I Feeling board and then the calming board. And so especially when he's starting to come down from like the peak of the meltdown, I use those to help him identify what his feelings are and then to start to calm down. He's starting to actually identify his feelings independently using the board, so he can point to them and actually say he's feeling sad or he's feeling angry, which has been really helpful. I have those linked down below. I'm also working on an entire course of how to use visuals and then including some visuals in that course. So be sure that you get your free visuals, and then you'll be on the email list and be notified when the full course is available. Then your last idea with responding to meltdowns is assessing for the future. So after that meltdown has happened and you've supported your child through it, you really want to look back and say, okay, what actually happened here? And are there things I could put in place to help prevent this in the future? If I had given more of a transition warning, if I had done 2 choices and made those choices really clear, could that have potentially helped with the meltdown situation? Okay. And then bonus tip is find some time for self-care for yourself. It is really hard when your child is going through something like that, and especially sometimes there's periods of times where there's a lot of transitions happening and your child might be having multiple meltdowns a day. And so find some time to allow yourself to actually react and respond. Maybe after bedtime, you go take a nice bubble bath. Just be sure that you're taking care of yourself, because we are constantly regulating on behalf of our children, and sometimes we need a break too. Okay, here's how they turned out. They're ready to bake. So these, by the way, are awesome. They can go in the freezer, the fridge, they have lids, and then they can go directly in the oven or the microwave. And so I am trying to do more meal prepping. And here we go. We got our granola oat bars ready as a snack. Yay!